Just to make a point, I did get us to broadcast. So we're finally we had a little trouble broadcasting before, but if you're joining us now, welcome to week 2 roundtable of the Think Electrate UnderAcademy College course, and we are in the middle of a conversation about writing with images at the moment. So, Greg, you were saying your wife is the one who does the image writing, quote unquote, in the family.
Yeah, and not only that, she has also been doing a blog for the last few years, and it primarily is photographs, and
Okay.
it's kind of a closed blog. It's, you know, she keeps it kind of just with other, I guess you could call it almost like a mommy blog, but you know, this kind of genre of blogs, and so she shares it with you know, other, mostly women, all women, and it's around the world, but it's mostly photographs of various things that she's working on doing. The other thing that we've done all the time with our kids is, so a lot of it has been, you know, kind of in the realm of, you know, what are we doing in homeschooling and things like that. But it's primarily photographs, and it's just something that I've never really paid too much attention to. But I can see it could be very interesting.
Well, as you read the Ulmer essay for next week, and I can't remember the exact title of it right now, but it has to do with the Cora in Florida. And what you'll see is that every section is headed with an image, and then when you start into the section, Ulmer starts to explain what the image means and how it is significant. And I guess I don't think it's just writing with, when we say writing with images, it's not just images by themselves. And especially, you know, when you look at Ulmer's work, it becomes so, there's a dense explanation following the image to explain what's in this image. And if you think back to, you know, the model for this is emblem writing in the 16th century in the Renaissance, that those highly allegorical images that you would have to come to with a pretty broad cultural understanding of the sense of the images. And, you know, what puts Renaissance scholars, what keeps them in business, is that, you know, they study what that was, because we've lost that. We've lost a lot of the kind of mythical allusions and cultural allusions that would occur in those emblem writing. But typically an emblem would have an image, but then some text, like a little poem underneath it. And so I think that's what's interesting, is the image-text combination. So it's not just, we don't abandon text, but we enhance the text with the addition of images. And of course, you know, image writing, we've experienced that as a culture, you know, since the advent of television and photography, where it was just images. But, you know, now it's become so much easier to produce images with text, and, you know, do it digitally and post it and broadcast it totally live. So it's pretty remarkable what's
I mean,
available.
that's really the fascinating thing that has really, you know, happened, is the, you know, to be a content producer, and it's been given to the masses pretty much. You know, and there's examples of it everywhere. I mean, YouTube is, you know, probably the biggest example right now. You know, it's just amazing, you know, how much video production is going on in this, you know, in this world. It's you know, it's very mind-boggling. You know, and one thing I wonder about is all of this video is sitting on storage devices somewhere all over the place.
Right.
You know, all these images, all this stuff. But anyway, but it's in the hands of the masses now for the most part, and it's becoming even easier with the advent of the tablets, smartphones, so on and so forth. The ubiquitous Wi-Fi access that is becoming available. You know, I mean, I'm using Wi-Fi access that was it's considered one of the first hot neighborhoods in a major American city here in Chelsea, and it was installed by Google. Thanks to Google, right? We've got Google Hangouts, and I'm connecting via the free neighborhood Wi-Fi Google put in their neighborhood here in New York.
That's very
all these
very
things
nice.
now make it much easier.
Interesting.
So
And how is that changing? You know, how is it changing the whole paradigm? You know, I'm not sure how we can. You know, we're like living in the middle of it right now.
Right.
It's kind of hard to a perspective on.
Well, I think that's the challenge, and the appeal of Ulmer's work is inviting us into the invention of how this gets used. So, you know, if we leave it alone, according to him, the entertainment industry will dominate, and that is the actual institution that is kind of setting the pace for in terms of its implementation, in the same way that schooling was the institution that emerged as the channel, as what channeled literacy, the education of literacy. So it's interesting. I'm hunting for a glog that I've created, and then I'm not finding it. So I had something interesting to show, but I'm a little distracted by hunting for that. Well, Greg, Serge, what do you think about all of this business about writing with images? What's your experience?
I really like writing with images. My research has tended to... I'm sorry, my mouth is really swollen, so it's probably hard to hear me.
You're doing pretty good, actually, so...
Okay. My research tends to deal with comics and graphic novels, so I do a lot with like digital art and digital design. So I mean, I'm really behind the idea of writing with images, and I like the image-text combination. And I was actually thinking about that Greg's reading Applied Grammatology, and Ulmer is basically taking Derrida's theory of the gram, where the gram itself is the line is an image. The line of the letter is an image. And discussing that. So, I mean, I think there's a long history through postmodernism and even through Ulmer into thinking about image as an lectured form of writing.
Yeah, I'd actually interested in looking at your dissertation if it's available online, because you did something with comics in the dissertation, right?
Yeah. Let me see something real quick.
Yeah, have you used Comic Life at all?
I've used it a little bit, yeah. I actually did the dissertation in design, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So let me...
So the dissertation itself is an experimentation, because it's not a Word document. It's a design. Interesting. Yeah, I'd like to hear you talk more about that. You know, what about InDesign did you use, and how did that?
I'm pulling it up now.
Okay. All right, let's
So
see.
screen shared. I'm just going to get to something really quick. So right here, the Homeland Security Advisory System. Do you see it?
It's not on the center screen. I see it now because I chose it.
Okay.
So, okay, go ahead.
So I actually use this as the structure for the entire manuscript. So each chapter is color-coded, going from severe to low, and it's a critique of the 9/11 Commission's report, a recommendation that we bureaucratize the imagination.
Okay.
So as we go through it, you can actually see that I start color coding it. I put image behind the text.
Nice.
So it's all about strangers. You're going to do something with the page numbers.
Right. That's nice. Simple, but you know, there's color. It's like, yeah, it's a design document. Yeah. Very nice. Yeah, I don't know if you're willing to share that, but I'd love to take a look at that.
Definitely. Yeah, this is actually one of my favorites right here with Roland Barthes smoking.
All right. This is writing images and text, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I would definitely like to. I would definitely love to read this, and in the Electrate way. And one of the things, you know, in reading applied grammatology right now, that is very stands out to me is, and I see it here in what you're showing us, is the whole idea, you know, of the marginal, you know, the visual elements of writing that are not voiced or that were not, you know, originally spoken. You know, and like the ornamentation that you included in this in your work, where the page numbers had those cool ornaments and so on and so forth, and there's something about that you know, I'm not quite sure, you know, where I want to take that concept or decept into my own poetic practice, but it's percolating in my mind right now.
That's good, yeah. Yeah, and the goal, remember, is to try to make something by the end of the term, something that incorporates electric thinking, that shows it, that undergoes it. So definitely, you know, have the percolation process occur. I did find my glog, and I don't know if you're familiar with glogs, G-L-O-G. Have you all heard?
No.
Heard of glog? Yeah, it's a little more popular in the K-12 educational space, but I'm not able to actually show it yet, but I'm getting closer. But basically, what I've done, and I'll share my screen here too, so you can check this out. Let's see what I have to do for that. I will open a new window. All right, so yeah, getting good at this process is challenging. So I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to choose the and basically, if you go to rsmith.glogster.com, and Glogster is glogster.com. Are you seeing the screen now that I've shared? You should see it now, I hope. So let's see.
Yes, I see it.
Okay, that's coming up on the center. Okay, yeah. So what I'd like to show this. Basically, the glog lets you create these posters, and it's as simple as that. And you know how when I was a kid, I had these posters on my wall, and there were, some big image and a little bit of text, and you get these catalogs that you could order from for fundraisers and this kind of thing. But now you can create your own, just like everything else. And there's this whole culture of teens who are doing this stuff. And what I did was, if it's hard to see the image at the moment, but you see this kind of face staring up at you, and the quote there is from Barbara Taylor Stafford, or Barbara Stafford Taylor, something like that. It says, "Pixels are the movable type of the future," and the image is one of those images made of other images, tiny images that have been composited together. And so, this girl's kind of looking up at you with this attitude, and the quote says, "So what do you have to say? If pixels are the movable type of the future, so how are you going to communicate with the pixel? What kind of publication are you going to make with this?" And that's kind of the gist of the little poster. I was very proud of that because it was kind of an in-your-face challenge to teachers. Because I'm a kind of I would do workshops for teachers, trying to get them to incorporate tech into their teaching. So that's actually probably going to be one of my project ideas for you, is to just make a glog. Make some glogs. The glogs have evolved where you can highlight a piece of the image, and it can become a link that takes you to whatever, a video or image or whatever. So the image becomes an interface to a broader kind of information composite that you've composed. There's actually the other project idea that occurred to me was on a website called ThingLink, just thinglink.com, and it's the same idea. You take a photo or an image, and then you can highlight pieces of it, and I think maybe there's a mouse over effect, and windows pop up, and you could have text pop up, or links to take you off. So it's letting the image kind of guide the composition. But I'm intrigued by your focus on comics, Serge. I've always had an interest in comics. I grew up reading them, the superhero stuff, when I was a kid. Loved that stuff. And then in grad school in the early '90s, I started to collect them. DC Vertigo had a number of series come out, and some of those were pretty interesting stories, kind of adult themed, but they were trying to be serious, doing something more serious than the superhero thing. Yeah. And
my favorite comics artist right now is Chris Ware.
Yes, I've seen his work.
He did the most recent New Yorker cover.
Oh, really? Okay.
The one for Mother's Day.
Okay, nice.
Which was really interesting because it was also a commentary on marriage equality at the same time. So I mean, he really does like a lot of social commentary with his image work, with his comic work too.
Right, and
he did the New Yorker cover in Chicago, where kids were dropping off, where parents were dropping off their kids to school, all worried about the gun debate about kids getting shot in school and everything too.
Right.
So,
yeah, what I need help with is just to be able to look at the images of a comic and say, how is this a rhetorical gesture, or if there are categories of putting together a comic or a comic text image combination. Are there categories of doing that, similar to in kind of textual rhetoric, where we have figures of speech and other kinds of repetitive patterns like anaphora, where a phrase is repeated at the beginning of a series of sentences, like Martin Luther King's speeches he was so good at, that kind of thing. So, have you done any work along those lines, Serge?
Not really. I mean, the dissertation was the really big piece of the puzzle, but until that, I wasn't really given a lot of leeway.
Okay, right.
So, I mean, I was kind of restricted on what I could do until then.
Right, and now you're free, right? You're
right.
Free agent, so you can. Ulmer says the PhD is a license to teach yourself, which I always liked.
Yeah.
That idea that now you can teach yourself and you choose what you want to learn, and then you go forth and teach yourself about that. Yeah, so I think the other assignment that's occurring to me now, I mentioned Glogster, I mentioned ThingLink. I'm going to mention Comic Life now, because I did one thing in Comic Life, and it was actually for an ARG I was playing. If you've heard of these alternate reality games. So it was Jane McGonigal, who is kind of emerging as a expert in these kinds of this genre of gaming. And about 4 years ago, she had one called Urgent Evoke. And she actually, you should know this, Sarah, she used comics as a way to introduce every week's content. And it's just, I think, urgentevoke.com if you go to the site. But what I will do is I'll call up the comic that I published for one of the quests or one of the tasks that had to be performed, and I'm going to find that and share that with you, share out the screen. So give me 1 second here.
Hey, Richard, could I ask you just a quick question?
Sure.
Since Cheryl and I are kind of talking about this stuff in private right now, would you be able just to restrict this hangout to the community?
I'll look into that.
Okay.
I'm sorry if we've exposed some secret. So.
Well, I just don't want her to feel like I'm putting her name out there without.
Okay. Yeah, because actually it's no problem. I mean, it's streaming live now, so, but I could probably turn it off or make it private at the YouTube site once we're done.
Okay.
And then but it's not something I've done before, so I'll have to figure that one out. But
right.
I will make it a point to do that. Yeah. So what I'm going to do now is share my screen again, show you this comic I did for the Urge and Evoke game. So are you able to see the screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, so the nice thing about the software Comic Life, it's very cheap. It's all this. I think it costs $20 for me. So it's reasonable, and it lets you very easily drag in photos, images, and these speech balloons. You drag them up and type your text, and boom, you're done. And then you can easily publish to a web page. So you just say publish, and it creates a folder, and then you just post up the folder onto a website, and then you've gone public with it. So in this particular quest or assignment that we were given, we had to kind of imagine what was next for the game. And what I did was kind of turn it into a little essay about collective intelligence and my thoughts about that. So here I'm saying what's next? That's the big question. I made a lot of friends from around the world. We're coming together. We're all contributing a part of ourselves. The fun thing for me was finding the images that matched what I wanted to say. these images I found on Creative Commons. That's a place where people post content that they already grant you permission to use, as long as, typically it's you have attribution. And then here I quote Henry Jenkins. And, again, just finding these images that matched the point I wanted to make, being able to play with the text. Here's, the book talking. A quote from the book is grabbed like that. Little kind of commentary from the side. These bubbles are chatting with each other. And this is, again, trying to trace out, how did I discover this process. This is an example of collective intelligence in action. I read about somebody, a friend on the Evoke site. They mentioned this guy Stoll. I went to Stoll and watched his TED Talk, and then I tweet about it. And that's how that information channels. And here I quote Manuel Delanda, which I was happy to do because I love his work about hierarchies versus meshworks. So here I'm trying to do what you might think of as traditional academic, make a traditional academic point, but it's mostly images, and it's only 12 pages of comic. This was a lot of fun for me to do, and one hope I have is to maybe actually create, do some work of scholarship with Comic Life, and something along these lines. That's and actually try to publish it as a book. And so here's where I cite the sources from the Creative Commons site. So this would be another option for you all to try in the final project. If that's something you want to do and have time to do, you could try using Comic Life to do, make some point, do something with images and writing. Even though I did that, I'm not sure I could theorize what I have done in doing that. So I think part of what we need to do is use these tools and then we reflect on what we're doing with the tool, and that's how we figure out what we're doing. And that was actually what I did with my dissertation. I wrote a hypertext in StorySpace, which was a very simple to use tool for writing hypertext that was around in the early 90s. And when I finished that, then I applied theory, and that's what I wrote my dissertation on. It was a theory of hypertext composition, but it was really based on what I had done. And it doesn't really apply well to web publication because of the particulars of that tool made it easy to very quickly compose your nodes and kind of capture a organic thinking process. But the point is, use the tool first, play around with it, then figure out what you're doing with it. So that's the undergo part of this class is an invitation to start playing with these image writing tools, because as you said, Greg, we all tend toward text, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this course has got me reflecting on what you just mentioned. Using the new technologies, which some of them are not really all that new anymore in a way. I'm thinking about just web publishing. I was getting involved in that back in the the mid to late 90s, and that's been and it's kind of become kind of just part of my life. And I know for younger folks, it's all they've known. So it's but this course has been very helpful so far in kind of taking a step back and looking at it and theorizing on it, as you just mentioned. There's one thing I just wanted to throw out there, which I came across this week, and it's I think I posted it to. I didn't post it to the Google Think Electrate community, but I did post it to my Google Plus stream, and it's just it's kind of a combination. It's a work of music that was also simultaneously as a Perl script. I don't really know what to make of it yet, but it was pretty fascinating.
So Greg, if
so
you could just repeat, Greg, sorry, repeat what you just said, because it kind of fritzed out for a moment.
Okay, there's a thing that I came across this past week, and I posted it on my Google Plus stream. And you may have seen it in your feed because you guys are part of my circle.
Yep.
And it's an Israeli musician, or she's a musician and a code artist, and she released a new song as a regular audio release, but also as kind of a code animation in Perl. And to me, this is kind of the cross pollination of media and genre that I think is really interesting. But I still don't quite know what to make of it.
Well,
I'll check on the actual community.
Yeah, do post that to our Think Electrate community so that anybody following or lurking in the class could check that out too. And I think you're right. It sounds like it's interesting. To me, what's interesting is that you bring this interest in coding, which is kind of highly logical, right? Whereas, I think a lot of Ulmers focus on the augmentation of electricity, focuses on the embodiment and emotions. I'm going to call up a quote that I plan to share as a kind of catalyst for discussion, and this is something that's it's prominent. Can you all see that now? Okay. This is on the Electricity site. Are you all hearing me okay still, or did I fade out? Hello? Yeah, we seem to have lost...
No, I can still hear you. And
you see the quote? Okay.
Yes, I do.
Great. Well,
yeah, it looks like Serge kind of froze up there.
Okay. Well, I'll read this out. It's the one that says, what literacy is to the analytical mind, electricity is to the affective body, a prosthesis that enhances and augments a natural or organic human potential. Alphabetic writing is an artificial memory that supports long, complex chains of reasoning impossible to sustain within the organic mind. Digital imaging similarly supports extensive complexes of mood atmospheres beyond organic capacity. Electric logic proposes to design these atmospheres into affective group intelligence. Literacy and electricity in collaboration produce a civilizational left brain, right brain integration. If literacy focused on universally valid methodologies of knowledge, like the sciences, electricity focuses on the individual state of mind within which knowing takes place, the arts. So that is, and what the point I wanted to make was that the focus is on the arts, on the affect, on the emotions, on the body, yet we have this phenomenon of coding becoming part of art making and process. But interesting that it's a code animation of music, and music is a moving thing. When you read the Ulmer essay, he talks about how music moves the body, and how that is now what is significant. So we're approaching our end time. We did get started a little late, but I just wanted to give you all a chance to sign off, make a final point, or ask a final question before we officially end. So Serge, are you hearing us, Serge? Yeah, we lost your voice, so.
Sorry, I muted it because there was a lot of background noise.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you.
I was listening. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. So I guess just inviting a final comment or question before we sign off for the week.
I really like this idea of doing an image assignment for the class.
Okay.
I think that would be really interesting. I'm curious to see what we could come up with collectively.
Okay. Nice. Okay. All right, so we'll pursue that. Sounds good. How about you, Greg? Final comment or question?
Sure, and I agree with that about the image assignment. And I guess my final comment, an idea that has been percolating in my mind during this Google chat, is the idea of the technology becoming invisible. And this is something that I heard at an IT conference on tablets. So this is the corporate tablet market trying to make the technology invisible because they feel like it'll be adopted and accepted and purchased by corporations. And I'm beginning to think, well, maybe this whole electrate thinking thing and electricity maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's, let's not make the technology invisible. Let's bring it to the foreground and make it very visible. I don't know. It's just that's my closing thought for this one.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, thanks, guys, for making the time. Turned out to be a great conversation, and I'm glad we captured some of it for the archive.